So there's a new slur, the G word, which no one's allowed to say anymore, at least not on Twitter and, Reddit. So presumably in the next short period it will spread to being banned on YouTube, Facebook, etc. I mean, on Facebook you're not even allowed to call someone a cow. If you call them an animal name, that's a bannable offense. That's how nanny statish these companies have got. But the G word is now one of them as well. In case you're wondering, the word's groomer, not the gamer word. So there you have it. And you can see here, just to promote first, the Origins of Intersectionality, of course, being very prominent in regards to all of this. Because, well, why did the alphabet people end up getting called groomers? Don't know. I suppose we'll find out, shall we? Because if you go to the next link here, we can see the news itself. This lady, some verified checkmark, saying Twitter says anti-LGBTQ slur groomer is banned, but its enforcement is sorely lacking. Right, number one. Gay people aren't groomers. No one's saying that. As in, we don't actually think that people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, etc. are groomers because they're part of that group. We're saying that the groomers are using that as a cover, demonstrably, every time. And we have endless cases of it. I mean, I love in here, Ron DeSantis' press secretary responds, groomer isn't an LGBTQ slur. It's a description of an evil behavior that sick adults of all sexualities and gender identities engage in. Why do you conflate this behavior with LGBTQ?
That's a question.
Out of interest.
That's like when they say to people like Danny Baker or whoever, like, oh, you're conflating black people with apes. It's like, no, you're doing that.
No.
Stop saying I'm doing it.
No one mentioned that. You're the one who brought that up. I mean, you can see Andy as well, coming up with this. Same thing, which... I mean, if Andy's an anti-gay activist at this point, it'll be news to him. That's for one. But I suppose we'll move forward and go to the article itself for the news in here, which they say that they don't enforce the rules. Quote: on Wednesday, the Daily Dot reported that a subreddit post inadvertently intensified pressure on Twitter to ban calling LGBTQ people groomers. So this was Reddit that bans the G word. And now Twitter followed suit in response. She writes, grooming is a slur that falsely equates being LGBTQ with being a paedophile. No, it doesn't. You're the one who did that. Like, again, as mentioned, this is about behavior of individuals. And, they have to come from one group, and they have to be using that very much as a mask, as we can see. The slur has roots in the term's original meaning, which refers to how sexual predators coerce and manipulate children in order to abuse them. Right. Yes, because pedos are genuinely using gender ideology as cover, as they always have. Also, it's not just noncery as well. It is, of course, coercing defenseless children into cultist ideology, which you 100% are doing in every school in America. We've all got access to libs of TikTok still. We can see the clips. We can see the TikToks, in fact. And in case you're wondering, have you ever read any queer theory?
I don't. Maybe I've been forced to in education by mistake.
There's the founder of queer theory, if we go forward, is Gail Rubin, and someone who definitely would have been featured on libs of TikTok if it was back in the day. And they write on Wikipedia here, just her crowning achievement, her 1984 essay, Thinking Sex, is widely regarded as the founding text of gay and lesbian studies, sexuality studies, and queer theory. You ever heard of this text before?
Don't think so.
The Taliban are most famous for making it a famous text in the recent years.
Oh, really?
Because they kept being like, yeah, this is the West. We're not interacting with that. Because as we go to the article itself, here's the front cover from Gail Rubin. Quote from her, it is harder for most people to sympathize with actual boy lovers. Yeah, it is. Like she writes, like communists and homosexuals in the 1950s. Whoa. Like, again, like she's the one making this, conflation. No one else. She's just doing it herself. She writes, boy lovers are so stigmatized that it is difficult to find defenders of their civil liberties, let alone for their erotic orientation. Queer theorist. This text, founding document, describing paedophilia as an erotic orientation. Consequently, the police have festered on them. Local police, the FBI, and watchdog postal inspectors have joined to build a huge apparatus, Chads, whose sole aim is to wipe out the community of men who love underage youth.
It actually says the police have feasted on them, so she's brought cannibalism in as well.
But the FBI and the Postal Service doing the right thing to try and stop nonsense, and she's like, how dare they? This is an oppressed minority that I stand with.
But the left always push that, man. I mean, didn't even Peter Tatchell say something like that? The left always push towards paedophilia because they want to break every taboo. I think I've said it before. Just for the sake of it, they never consider some taboos are there for a good reason.
Yeah, it's another marginalized group in their terms, and that needs to be brought to the center. They're another intersection of oppression, don't you know? Good. I don't care. if they're oppressed. She continues, though, because she wasn't happy with shutting up at that point. In 20 years or so, when some of the smoke has cleared, it will be much easier to show that these men have been the victims of a savage and undeserved witch hunt. No, they won't. A lot of people will be embarrassed by their collaboration with this persecution, but it will be too late to do much good for those men who have spent their lives behind prison.
Wrong side of history, bro. That's the argument she's making. You're on the wrong side of history for being anti-pedo.
And this is the lady in this text specifically is the founding text of queer theory. Yeah, funnily enough, queer theorists are obviously long-standing, being alleged to be, groomers for exactly statements like this. And then the Daily Dot comes along and says, why are you saying that about gay people? I was like, no one was. They were saying it about people like her and their ideology. I love how she says, what was it? Within 20 years, things will change. Turned out we only took 40 instead. So she was a bit off the mark. But in schools across America, they are trying to make that the norm, as every TikTok teacher seems to show. Back to Twitter's stance on all this, because they write some more. Twitter wrote, we are committed to combating abuse motivated by hatred, prejudice, or intolerance, particularly abuse that seeks to silence the voices of those who have been historically marginalized. That would include pedophiles, Twitter.
What about the currently marginalized, like kids who are being groomed or straight white men? There's loads of
they
people...
deserve it, according to Twitter.
Why is it always the historically marginalized? There's problems happening now with the Uyghur Muslims.
Because they want to destroy the West. And if Westerners are being marginalized, that's good.
Oh,
whereas,
forgot.
Where the evil West used to say that pedos were bad and deal with them appropriately, that's wrong. So Twitter is there to save them. For this reason, they write, we prohibit behavior that targets individuals or groups with abuse based on their perceived membership in a protected category. It's like, right. So nonces and queer theorists are very much historically marginalized. Good job. All of history. But then the question becomes, are they a protected characteristic? Are they a protected group? And, according to the intersectionals, yes. They're a marginalized group. Therefore, they deserve protection. As the Daily Dot is essentially arguing here by trying to conflate those people with being gay. They're like, aren't they just like gay people? And everyone else in the room is like, no. You freak. The hell's the matter with you? I mean, this is, literally a homophobic thing we try to get rid of.
Yeah.
And instead, you're bringing it back for some reason.
I must say, if I was a normal gay person like Andrew Doyle or Douglas Murray or Andy No, I'd just be constantly furious at these people.
Well, they are.
They are. So that's it.
If you go to the next one, you can see, in fact, gays against groomers. Also, not very happy about that. Not really appreciative of Twitter's stance that they're just like pedophiles. Which, you can't blame them, to say the least. Which,
by the way, harking back a little bit to what you said, but it's interesting. You can get the tone of a social media platform by which words they ban, can't you? Twitter's banning groomer because it's an absolute cesspit. Facebook, it's cow because it's basically middle-aged Karens having a pop at each other about recycling, and it gets a bit feisty.
You've got to stop women-on-women violence.
Yeah.
Although this,
Different
is
scenes.
Horrific, but there we are. It's leftist ideology advancing in the way that leftists do.
Yep.
And of course, they're going to run into horrific statements such as leftists now believing that all gay people are pedophiles, which weird thing to do, but okay.
But this is kind of where we win when they try to die on the groomer hill. Because people will always, I said it probably to you before, they'll always defend their children. And the left will keep pushing and say, no, we should be able to do what we want. And he's like, no, stay away from my children. Step away from the children. And that's where we start to fight
alone.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah, and that's where normal people fight back and say, you've gone too far. And then they say, hang on, what else are you doing? And which is what's happening now.
But there is a somewhat comedical aspect to all this, which you might appreciate, which is some right-wingers obviously responded to this by being like, oh, groomer is literally the N-word for LGBT folks, they're telling us. What's up, my groomers? Groomer, please. So,
and that's with a hard R. So you should only say groomer with an A at the end, really.
Groomer instead of groomer. Tell me you've seen that Boondocks episode about the teacher who did that. Have you seen it?
No.
There was a teacher who got in problem because he's a white teacher. He had black students in the city. And the students would all call each other with the hard R because they were black and they thought they could do that. So he decided he would do it with an A in response to try and reach out to the kids. But he didn't want to do the hard R because that'd be too much. I don't know if he also got suspended for calling the kids the N-word. And then there's an interview on local TV where he's trying to explain. He's got a little board with both letters, being like, "Look, the difference. Please believe me."
I mean, it's a very close sound, isn't it? So you rested your whole job on a vowel sound there, essentially.
Yeah, but there we have it. If you need a new gamer word, though we have one apparently. And James Lindsay got suspended for this. One of the first victims for saying the G word. As you can see here, there's a TikTok noticing that he responded to someone calling this a, conflating gays with paedophilia. And he was like, okay, groomer, like, what's wrong with you?
Did he come back on? Because he could have appealed to this using the argument, but they totally are.
I think, I don't know if he made an appeal, but he is back on now. So presumably he had to delete that because... I
think he just had to pledge allegiance to Elliot Page and it got him back on.
Zeke Elliott. But if we go to the next one here, we can see Libs of TikTok posting that, no, come on. Like, we all know what the reality is of this. And as you can see, she notes another case. I mean, there are many of these, but we have another one. Michigan public school employee who spoke at a school board meeting in support of teaching an LGBTQ curriculum, mocked parents, was arrested for allegedly trying to meet a minor for sex. Are you shocked?
Not anymore, Callum, because it's happened so many times. The drag show, oh, look, they had a record of assaulting an 8-year-old, etc., etc. It's every time.
And I suppose we will enjoy this chap here. And just
I'm a resident, townie, taxpayer, vaccinated and functioning,
Get that in
graduate of this high school, class of 1999, proud member of the LGBTQIA community, and an employee of Mount Pleasant Public Schools. Thank you.
Black Lives Matter shirt, people listening.
I really cannot speak any more eloquently than the people who have spoken before me tonight. But what I can say is that for the last 5 years, I have had the profound privilege of working with your students, with your students, with your students. And I can tell you this, they are hungry for knowledge.
Oh my God.
They are so hungry for knowledge that despite your words, your wishes, your values, they will learn on their own. So many of your children are hurting, questioning, struggling in this world that we have created. They are simultaneously being taught to celebrate and to hate who they are. I can't deny that. Every day. Ultimately, they will become who they will become with or without us. Give them the chance, the grace, and the support to embrace their own learning. They're going to do it anyway. No matter what you say or do, no matter how many candles you light, no matter how many rallies you hold. With liberty and justice for all.
Okay, groomer. I mean,
really, yeah.
What can you say? That's the most disturbing clip you've probably ever played in the context on this show. The way he says that your kids, and then the hungry bit when you wonder what he's going to say for a minute. It's like, what are you going to say there? And then it's still bad what he actually says. And by the way, that mustache and accent, pure South Park character.
I mean, it would have been, a right-wing parody, surely.
Right.
I'm fully vaccinated. Black Lives Matter, by the way, I'm here to groom your kids.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I presume that speech was the reason his hard drives were investigated, and now he's allegedly being charged with sex with a minor. Or
I can't believe he also
sex.
got the vaccinated bit in there. If he was also a C person on a dinghy, that would be the full set of today's show.
It really is mimetic magic, isn't it? Just like, oh, the memes are real.
And I'm fully vaccinated. And I'm a penis. This is disgusting.
I'm hungry for your kids. It's like, oh, boy. But there you have it. And he's not the only one. I mean, we've shown repeatedly these individuals keep getting
Genuinely
arrested.
upset me.
It seems. And we're not surprised because the ideology they're promoting is not homosexual toleration or acceptance. Instead, it is one of, turning people into queer theorists, as Gail might have wanted. And if we move to the next link here, we can see Pink News is incredibly happy with this news that the G word has become a banned word. Because that's the aspect here. They're not countering the argument that, people like him seem to keep getting arrested for this sort of thing. Instead, they've just decided to shut down the criticism. I mean, the right has looked at all these TikToks, all these arrests, and gone, we're a bit critical of you people. We don't seem to trust you after all those arrests. I think there might be something wrong with your ideology. I mean, you did all right in the 80s that you were a bunch of nonsense as well, and then made Gail your founding text of, queer theory. And that criticism has now been banned. I mean, that is the response from the progressives. Every time.
Well,
not to counter the argument, but just to ban the discussion.
Pink News did a hit piece on me, so every time I see them, I just go into a sort of blind rage.
So justified. And I also love how Pink News endlessly put themselves as the oppressed, marginalized people. And I was like, yeah, but you literally have the ability to ban criticism. I mean, you and the Muslims are the only ones who have that, really. I mean, I know they can trump you on this aspect. They've got, better convincing arguments. But,
And that beautiful moment we were talking about before where Stephen Nolan grilled the head of Pink News, whatever he was, and he couldn't even say what Two-Spirit was. Then he said, well, what's gender queer then? Just give me that one. And he couldn't do that one either. He didn't know what it was.
No.
He's like, you're the guy pushing all this. You don't know what it is.
No. I was like, why are you doing this to me? It's like, because you're the head of Pink News. Anyway, but we go to James Lindsay, who responded to Pink News here, just saying it's homophobic to say groomer is anti-LGBT, by the way. And that's the fundamental point as well. Even their own headlines and the way they're trying to frame this ends up making them anti-gay, which I suppose that's what they are in the end. Otherwise, why would they be trying to conflate the two? But if we move to the last one here, I just wanted to also mention just some other madness, which I didn't know where else to fit, so I think we'll do it.
Can I just say, it was a simpler time when we were just turning the freaking frogs gay. You know what I mean? That,
Well, it was just the frogs.
That was quite innocent grooming.
Yeah, I mean, if they were just grooming frogs, I don't think I'd actually really have a problem at this point.
We wouldn't do a whole 20 minutes.
I'll sacrifice the frogs if it means the kids can be safe. But the news in the UK, which is, of course, we have to indoctrinate the whole of society, don't we? It can't just be the schools, and you have to have public symbols of approval. This is Guido breaking the news that £230,000 of taxpayers' money have been sent on rainbow roads, which if it was for, go-karts, so we could do Mario Kart skits.
Well, I was going to say,
worthwhile,
it's disgusting. That money could go to pizzas for migrants.
It certainly could. You could buy a lot of pizzas.
Imagine how many dominoes you could throw onto a dinghy for that.
Yeah, but if you want to give it to people who might actually, need some food and just piss takers, Guido does have the numbers. They say, to put that in other terms, that's 109,000 free school meals worth of rainbow paint. Money well spent. But there we have it. That's the G word, being banned. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the book clubs we do, this one on Konstantin Kissin's An Immigrant's Love Letter to the West. And if you want to follow what else I'm putting out, you can follow me on Getter at Callum on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.